I love that big men matter again in the NBA, right? It adds to the dynamic and strategy of each game. And there were a few years here where it felt like they just didn't, right? They got played off the court. No one cared. I'm getting a vet minimum center. And now it's come back around, and the Warriors and Dub Nation, I think, all understand, hey, can we get a big man to go with this new strength in numbers look around Steph Curry? Rob Williams, the Time Lord, 27-year-old center for the Portland Trail Blazers, was drafted in 2018 by the Celtics. The nickname originated from the fact that he overslept his introductory press conference for the Celtics. Didn't show up, no show. And then I guess there's also Doctor Who. I guess there's these Time Lords that travel through time and teleport. And that's fitting when you watch Rob on the court, because it almost feels like he teleports to rebounds and block shots. He gets to rebounds and blocks that you're like, well, he had no business getting to. Where did he just come from, right? He really is everything that the Warriors are looking for, right? He's a rim runner. He's a shot blocker. He can switch. He's young, decent contract, plays for a non-contender, right? And so, it seems like, okay, maybe this is the guy. He had a big game the other night, right? However, his knees, much like Jalen Suggs' hair, they're done. I'm sorry, Haley. Holla at your boy. But nah, they're done. Listen, and you guys know this. You remember the final series in 22. Rob Williams he tried to play. He dragged that knee out there. He's had 2 surgeries on his left knee. He had a surgery on the right knee last year for a dislocation. And we're not talking about a big man who plays like Kevon Looney, where it's like, all right, well, he can kind of use his timing and his smarts. No. The Time Lord teleports across the court. It's part playing style and part just, bad luck. I'm rooting for the dude. He's a very likable dude and a very entertaining player when he's on the court. But I just feel like right now at this point, I'm not willing to take that swing on Rob Williams. My guy Lifestyle, one of the patron members in the Discord, he had messaged me. He was like, hey, man. He was like, you remember when the Warriors traded for Andrew Bogut? He was like, he was injury prone. He was, it seemed like he was cooked. And then all of a sudden he had this resurgence with the Warriors and was a huge part of that first run, right? The difference to me was Bogut had the elbow injury. It was upper body. For both knees to be suspect and cooked, and then you consider his playing style. Again, I'm rooting for Rob Williams. I just think it's too, as intriguing as it would be, if he was healthy, the perfect fit, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp. I want to give a minute here to shout out my guy, James, one of my best friends who actually works in this field. But he is someone that I can run things by, talk to, verbalize the thoughts running through my head. And as men, we don't do that enough. We tend to focus on the physical, right? Exercise and getting that release. But it's just as important to do the talking and having someone to talk with just to be balanced. And it's the holiday season, right? It's the gratitude season. And so take a second to give thanks to the people in your lives that can do that. And if you don't have someone like that, and maybe you're considering therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's designed around your schedule to be convenient. You answer a few questions and you get matched with a licensed therapist in just a matter of minutes. So let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/alchemy to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/alchemy. You look around the rest of the league at some of these other guys that may be available, and I know this isn't as sexy a name or a intriguing of a ceiling. To me, Brook Lopez is the perfect fit. He's the perfect fit. I was watching Milwaukee the other night, and he had a big game, and he still has a lot left. And I think he and Draymond would dominate the paint defensively, just absolutely dominate with their IQ, his size. And for Draymond to have him behind him when he roams, and I think that they would get on the same wavelength very quickly, right? He spaces the floor so you could play Kuminga at the 4 alongside him. He's a high post passer as well, and he sets monster screens. He's got so much experience, right? And it would seamlessly work. The problem is, again, the contracts and this CBA. I don't know how the money works. You'd have to get creative, but I think that would be the move right now that would seamlessly work. I have two more names for you, though, right? I know it's early in trade talks, but we're all anticipating. And I think a lot of us maybe are even more zealous to find this big man, seeing as though, hey, the West is maybe a little more open for us than we thought initially, with some injuries and some teams, Minnesota, some of these teams really struggling, right? Were y'all watching the only game on last night? I was checking out Clay. In Utah. Luka, man. So at some point here, we're going to have a conversation about his leadership and lack thereof. Like, he just gets a pass. Right? He is almost, I was thinking about it. Well, okay. You notice how wherever Russ goes, he's beloved within the locker room, except the Lakers. That was a weird situation. But other than that, the other stops, guys that play with Russ tend to love him far more than the fans do, right? And what it is you could say what you want about his IQ and his bag or his skill level. Russ gives you everything all the time, right? And so guys can look past his deficiencies because they're like, yo, he's giving it all every day, right? And it's hard to look past. And then you look at Luka, he's almost the opposite. All the skill and talent in the world, but he ain't giving his all, man. You saw it last night, right? I'm curious, if Luka actually tried on defense, how much would it cost his offense? We'll probably never know. But anyway, back to the big man search. I know some of you would say, hey, John Collins, he's a lob threat, right? He's a vertical lob threat. He can give you 20 on a given night, good rebounder. The shot is super suspect, but, these trades are much harder under the CBA, right? And I think there's going to be, it's almost, now, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't watch baseball anymore, but when I did in the 90s and early 2000s, you'd get like middle reliever traded for backup second baseman, right? There was a lot more trades along the margins than like these blockbuster trades. And I feel like that's where the NBA is headed. So John Collins is still a big money player. I'm not a huge fan of his. What about Drew Eubanks? He had an impact in that game last night, right? He really gave them a surge in that third quarter. He is 27 years old, just like Rob Williams, out of Australia. So he's got a little bit of nasty in him, right? And he's a live body. He's a live body who's going to run the floor, be physical. As a vertical spacer, he's not a just throw it up anywhere and he'll go get it guy, but he gets up enough to where you have to pinch down on him. Is that a pause? I don't think so, right? But you have to respect it. Like, if he's rolling to the basket, he can finish with authority and catch lobs. And so I think he's at like 4.5 per year, right? So it would cost Moses Moody. I mean, and that would be a tough pill to swallow for a lot of y'all. And you'd say, hey, man, the ceilings here don't match. But if you want to go all in for Steph right now, and he is making quite the case that you should, it's a move like that to add a big live body that fits this dog mentality that they've built, like Drew Eubanks. One more name. And I saw some of you bring this up in the comments. How about they just give JaVale McGee a call? Right? He's not in Sacramento, right? Is JaVale's not in the league? I know he's like 37. He's older, but he's one of these guys that kind of like Russ, where his youthful jubilance, like he has a youthful energy to him, right? Even though he's older. And then system knowledge, right? Like, he knows all the principles of Steve and Steph and Draymond. And that move, again, these cap rules, you'd probably have to waive Gee to open up a roster spot. I love Gee. I don't want to do it. But again, if we're talking about right now adding a bigger body, another center, JaVale might be a low risk, high reward type of gamble. Anyway, those are my thoughts on a couple of bigs out there. But I think if you're looking for trades and you're looking for bigs, you got to scour the league for the rosters for these like third centers, second centers. You're like, oh yeah, that guy's, you know what I mean? I don't know necessarily if they can pull off a guy with a $20 million contract. I think Brook would be the ideal fit. Rob, I'm sorry, I don't trust his body. I think, and not to mention, I don't know if we can even deal. I know it's Dunleavy instead of Myers. I don't even know if we could deal with Portland after the whole GP2 thing. I don't know. I don't know if you might have to X them off the trade list. But those are my thoughts on getting a big right now. Let me know if y'all have some other creative ideas. We've got Memphis tonight. No Ja. What does he have? A hip injury or something like that? The injuries are going wild right now. But what's the big white dude they got going crazy right now? Oh, man, I forget his name. He's got a big beard, hits the three, runs the floor. Memphis is one of the better run organizations in the league, and they have a hard-nosed mentality, and it's always a fight, right? It doesn't really matter who's healthy for them. They're going to bring it. I think they always try to bring it against the Warriors. You combine that with this being the second cup game, should probably have a lively one here Friday night at Chase Center. I guess the other news that I got to tap in on is DeAnthony Melton. Sprained left ACL. We all saw it. The game was so dramatic, it got lost in the ending, right? Like if that game hadn't ended so dramatically, I think I myself would have been more like, because I saw Trace come up after that. He tried to dunk on Lively too. But a sprained ACL, man. And it's not Rob Williams bad here, right? It's not like he's had a bunch of surgeries, but you see how he plays, man. And I get a lot of people are like, yo, he's the missing piece to the starting lineup. Kerr basically said that. He's like, yeah, he's going to start, and like, look how we look with him. And so I understand if you're in the camp of saying, well, you got to take the risk of, or it's not even a risk, but you got to keep him around because of what it can look like when he's right. And we've got a pretty good history of keeping guys active, right, with Celebrini. But if you were to try to make a big trade right now, right, I wouldn't be mad if you had to add his salary in, because availability is the best ability, and he just doesn't have it, right? Anyway, I'll be back tomorrow to talk about what happens against this undermanned Grizzlies team. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.